Can't have a budget TV battle without Vizio being part of the conversation. And here we have the M series Quantum, or at least one of them. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and today we are reviewing the Vizio M series Quantum Q7. Yes, there is also a Q8, which is a significantly better TV by the specs. I'm kind of frustrated. Why not just make one M series and call it a day? Well, anyway, the Q7 here has significantly less zones and less peak brightness than the Q8. We'll talk about the differences there later. Just know that we're reviewing the Q7, which is the TV, by the way, that you can get just about anywhere. The Q8 is exclusive to Amazon. You can also get this at Amazon, but you can also get it at Best Buy. You can get it at Costco, Sam's Club. You get the idea. Let's unbox this thing. Here's everything that comes in the box. You get two metal feet, nice that they're metal, some screws for those, Duracell batteries, power cable, Vizio's remote, and I can't remember off the top of my head if this is the same style as last year, but man, it's way better than that old school square thing that they had years ago, and then some product stuff. This probably means more to me than like most people, but one of the things that I appreciate about Vizio TVs, at least the unboxing portion, is that you get this whole lift with the bag situation. Attaching the feet is super simple with Vizio TVs. You just slide this guy in and then get to screwing it, which reminds me, I wanted to ask, do you guys value this portion of the unboxing video? Do you enjoy seeing me screw legs in? Back at the TV shot time, and one thing I gotta tell you right away is that this is not the slimmest TV. It's a little bit chunky due to this bump out right here. One thing that is interesting is the port selection. So not only is there analog composite and audio input with actual RCA plugs, there's also analog audio output with RCA plugs, which is interesting. There's also optical output, and then HDMI 1 is your EARC port that will support Dolby Atmos pass-through. And then ports 2, 3, and 4 will support 4K up to 60 FPS along with variable refresh rate thanks to FreeSync. So they're not full spec HDMI 2.1, but they're gonna get the job done for most gamers. So I wanna take a second to thank Vizio for this very simple inclusion of foam lined cardboard because it protects the screen in shipping, yes, but it also makes setting this guy up way, way easier. We gotta get rid of that to look at the front of the TV. There she is, and we've got a little energy guide label that we've got to get rid of, but man, really tight bezels here. They're not ultra thin, but overall the look is very nice. I'm a little concerned about the reflectivity. We'll check that out a little bit deeper later, but generally speaking, an attractive TV. Let's power this kid up, and while we wait for the splash screen to finish up and get all loaded, let me just say I've been pretty critical of Vizio SmartCast TV system, and that's because it's always felt a little sluggish, and I didn't really care for the layout, but Vizio assures me they've been working on that, and this is much better. Now we get to find out. The initial part of this setup is about what you would expect, checking for your region, home use, that sort of thing. And then ultimately you get to the update portion, and this varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. You usually have to wait a little while, but up to 10 minutes. Well, thankfully, that did not take 10 minutes. In fact, I think it was just over a minute. We'll call this our Den TV, I suppose. Now, that was definitely the TV update. No word on whether the apps are also going to need to update, so we'll find out about that in just a second. I do not have an antenna connected, so we're gonna skip the local channels thing and skip again. All right, here we go with the terms of service and privacy policies. For both Vizio and Google, you might want to check these out to understand what kind of information they're gathering from you. Also understand that if you decline some of these, you may not get all the functionality of the TV. So we'll skip registration, move forward, SmartCast loads up. It takes you through a little bit of a tutorial, not much of one, and hey, we're up and running. That's not too bad at all. Now, I was curious if it was going to need to update apps, so let's just find out. We'll pop into Netflix, and it doesn't look like it. Let me just get logged in here. Cool, so no update to Netflix needed, and hopefully that's true for other apps. We'll find out. Since we're in Netflix, though, I want to go ahead and take a look at the picture settings. It looked like it was in standard, and well, here it says it's in bright picture mode. There's also calibrated dark, game, sports. Wow, you know what? The game color looks really good. That's excellent. We're seeing more and more of that with TVs these days. I'm going to start with calibrated because that is just my go-to move. We'll see if that really ends up being the best start later on. But ambient light sensor being off is good. Backlight's juiced up pretty well for a calibrated mode. Brightness and contrast at the median, which is what you would expect for SDR. This is an SDR title in Netflix. Warm color temperature. Let's go into the advanced picture settings. Black detail is off. We have low, medium, and high. I'm going to play around with that a little bit and report back in the full review. Super resolution, which I think is going to be some image enhancement, is also turned off. I want to see how it performs without that. Edge enhancement is low. I'm going to turn that off for now. Local contrast is off by default. So that's processing that enhances contrast. That is not the full array local dimming feature, which is actually here. We have a low, medium, and high. Not a lot of difference between medium, high, and medium is the default, which is what we want to look at anyway. Now, motion control. Let's get into that. Clear action is off by default. Love it. Excellent. Noise reduction is on low. Again, it's an out-of-box setting, so I go ahead and leave that there. Pro Gaming Engine is not engaged because we don't have a gaming source. Film mode is on, that's fine. Gamma is 2.1. I usually go with 2.2, but we'll stick with 2.1 for now, and color calibration comes later when I actually pull out some measurement tools. So by and large, the calibrated mode looks set up well right out of the box. Now let's pop into something that offers Dolby Vision. We'll let this run a little bit. Pause real quick, and then we'll get into the picture settings. Pause, please. Thank you very much. Bounce into the menu. We are in Dolby Vision calibrated mode. Good. Tone mapping at 50. That's an interesting setting. I haven't seen that in a while. As we go through all this, it all looks correct. Going to advanced picture. Again, I want to find out if motion control is defeated, and it is. That's great. We did not see that with some of the TCL TVs. So really, really effortless picture settings here. Now we can go in and change the Dolby Vision calibrated to something like calibrated dark. There is a Dolby Vision game mode, sports, vivid, and then there's Dolby Vision bright, which I think is going to look attractive, but let's again go into advanced picture and find out where it puts stuff. If we go down to motion control, clear action is still off. Excellent. Wow. I really feel like Vizio has got its out-of-box settings looking solid. Now we'll have to check out performance in a little bit. Now we're in YouTube. I'm going to pick an HDR title because I want to check out what standard HDR looks like as opposed to Dolby Vision. Nice. HDR 10 tag right there on the screen. I really appreciate that. Let's give this a pause and then go into the menu, check out the picture settings for standard HDR. It's in a bright mode, which is cool. There is a calibrated mode. You can see the difference in the color temperature there is significant. We'll start with calibrated, but again, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily going to land there as my favorite picture setting. We've noticed some differences this year. Going through some of the other settings, clear action is also off in the calibrated mode, which is fantastic. All right, so it's really consistent across SDR, HDR, and Dolby Vision. All right, so that takes care of our apps. Now let's go into our HDMI inputs and find out whether any of those settings were carried over. This is an HDR 10 disc, so it's in an HDR mode right off the bat. If I go into the menu and pick picture settings, it's HDR 10 bright. Okay, so you do need to go into each of your HDMI inputs and verify that your settings are what you want. Let's switch to another one really quick. Let's go to the Xbox, which I notice it knows the name of the Blu-ray player, but it doesn't know that an Xbox is in HDMI 1. You have to actually go in and name the input manually, which is too bad because I see it auto-labeled by other TVs. Now the Xbox splash screen is not in HDR, so if we go into the menu, picture settings, it's in game mode by default, which is great. It did manage to understand that it's a game console. However, I'm not playing a game right now. And if I went to go play a Blu-ray, I'm a little concerned that it would play that Blu-ray in game mode as opposed to a TV picture mode. So I'm gonna switch it to calibrated, and then I'm gonna launch a game and see what happens. So I popped into Fortnite. We're actually in a game now. We'll press the menu button, go into picture settings, and it is set to game mode. So that's great. If I back out of the game, I would expect that it goes back to calibrated mode. Let's check that out. So we're back at the home screen now, and I'll press menu, picture, and we're back to game. That's interesting. I'm not a huge fan of that particular setting. There may be somewhere deeper in the menu where I can disable that, but I'd love it if it just worked such that it was in calibrated mode on movies or TV that I watched through the various apps and only went into game when I actually started playing a game. That, again, is something that I'm going to dig into a little bit deeper for the review. So having done some basic picture settings work, I went ahead and watched some footage I'm super familiar with on this TV. And the positive first impression is that it has very good black levels. But after that, I started running into several issues. Issues which I will discuss in detail in the full review. Right now, though, I want to point out the fact that this 65-inch M Series Q7 costs about $700 for the 65-inch version, and that places it below the TCL 6 series in terms of comparable price, but above the TCL 5 series, which is a well-spec'd out TV in its own right. So I'm not sure exactly where this TV is going to end up sitting. I will say that I'm probably going to lean towards the M8 if you want to do an M series at all, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's a lot to dig in with this TV, so we'll see you back here for the full review. Thanks, as always, for watching, everyone. Where is the M series on your radar, especially with so many competitive budget TVs out there? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what do you need to know about this TV in the full review. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and as always, visit digitaltrends.com for the latest tech news and reviews.